Sugar, oh honey, honey, you are my candy girl, and you got me wanting you. Oh honey, ooh sugar, sugar, you are my candy girl, and you got me wanting you.
Hello and welcome to Pop's Chock'lit Shop, a Riverdale podcast all about the brand new CW show and the world of Archie comics. I'm Rob.
I'm Megan.
And in this first episode, we will tell you all a little bit about ourselves before jumping into an in-depth breakdown of Riverdale Episode 1. On future episodes of the podcast, I hope to do a quick chat about comic books at the end, but we're not going to worry about that one in this first episode. As I said, I'm Rob. I'm a comic book guy, and I've been reading Archie comics on and off since I learned how to read, pretty much. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I am a huge fan who stays current with all the Archie comic books as they come out to this day. I'm not a huge fan of the teen drama TV shows, much to my wife's chagrin, but maybe this show will be the merger between our two worlds so we can find some common ground.
Yeah, and I am all about teen dramas. That's my favorite thing in life.
How many times have you watched, like, Pretty Little Liars, and what are the other shows that you watch?
The Vampire
Diaries, stuff like that.
One Tree Hill.
The, like, stereotypical, like, girly CW shows. Even the ones that aren't on the CW shows still get, like, lumped in with the CW shows.
Yeah, I've watched One Tree Hill like 8 times through, and The Vampire Diaries close to that. I've rewatched it a lot.
Is Vampire Diaries on CW?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this fits in perfectly then. So I guess just, you ready to jump right into it?
Sure.
All right. It starts off with Jughead doing this, like, voiceover narration. And 2 different times in the show, it cuts to him at the laptop. So I actually just wrote down everything he has on his laptop. So I'll just read what he put in the laptop first as, like, an introduction. Because that's a better way of doing an introduction than anything I would write. So pretend that I'm, which one is it? Which one of the twins from Sweet Life of Zach and Cody is it?
Cole Sprouse.
Okay, pretend that I'm Cole Sprouse.
I'm not sure if that's Zach or Cody, though.
I don't know either. We'll figure it out, and that's one for episode 2. All right, so he says, "This is a story about a town and the people who live in the town and work there and fall in love there, get married there, have children there, and yes, even die there. From a distance or from the window of a train rushing by, it presents itself like so many other small towns all over the world. Safe, decent, innocent. But that's only how people want it to be, or think it is because they're young and don't know any better, or they're old and they don't want to know any better. At a certain point, though, you look close enough and you start to see the shadows underneath the town, and sometimes the shadows take over. And you're living in this place and you don't recognize it anymore. And you're feeling a lot of things, but safe isn't one of them. The name of this town is Riverdale. And our story begins, I guess, with what the Blossom twins did this summer. On the 4th of July, just after dawn, Jason and Cheryl Blossom drove out to Sweetwater River for an early morning boat ride. The next thing we know happened for sure is that Dilton Doily, who was leading Riverdale's Boy Scout troop on a birdwatching expedition, came upon Cheryl by the river's edge. Riverdale police dragged Sweetwater River for Jason's body but never found it. So a week later, the Blossom family buried an empty casket and Jason's death was ruled an accident. As the story that Cheryl told made the rounds, Cheryl dropped a glove in the water and Jason reached down to get it and accidentally tipped the boat and panicked and drowned. As for us, we are all still talking about the 4th of July tragedy on the last day of summer vacation when a new mystery rolls into town." So my first thought seeing and hearing all that was, wait a minute, did we put on the right show? Because that's, like, really dark. Like, this is the opposite of what Archie comics usually feel like. Although he did mention Dilton Doily, which I was like, what?
Yeah, I don't really know anything about the comics, but I didn't think they were so Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah, in the comic books, it's more like what he starts off talking about in the beginning, where he's talking about how small towns are safe, decent, and innocent, but that's only how the young that don't know any better or the old that don't want to know any better feel. So it's almost like he's saying like a direct reference to the comic book universe and saying, that's great if you're just going to look in the window, but in real life, it's a lot darker than that sort of a thing.
Yeah, well, I blame Cheryl Blossom because she's the devil.
Yeah, she is.
She's so horrible. I hate her.
So, as the story continues, there's a rich family of Hermione Lodge and her beautiful daughter Veronica who roll into Riverdale just in time for the new school year to start. They go to the only property that's not owned by Veronica's father, and there they meet old Smithers, who's ready to wait on them hand and foot, but Hermione would rather get a burger at Pop Tate's chocolate shop. So I think that the casting for Veronica, immediately, I was like, that's perfect. They casted her really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that Veronica had dark hair. Her eyebrows are amazing.
Yeah, I actually stopped like 3 different times during this episode and was like, her eyebrows look good, which is a really weird thing for a dude to think. Maybe I've just been watching too many makeup tutorials on YouTube.
Probably.
But, yeah, she was really well cast, and I also loved that they actually name dropped Smithers. It wasn't just some random guy, because Smithers is actually someone that makes loads of appearances in the comic books.
Oh, really?
Yep. So, and every time they do that, I get excited. And speaking of people that I get excited when they name drop, across town, teens Betty Cooper and Kevin Keller are talking about Betty's feelings for longtime friend and next-door neighbor Archie Andrews, who Kevin sees through the window has gotten hot over summer, even developing a 6-pack abs. Kevin says that there are 6 more reasons why she better finally ask him out while she has the chance. Kevin was one that when I saw him in her room, I was like, well, she has her top off, so he must be gay, so that must be Kevin. So I actually said out loud, hey, that's Kevin, and you were just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you kept doing that with all the characters before they'd actually
Before they were
say the
officially
name.
introduced, yeah. So that was cool, and it makes sense that Archie has abs now. In the comic book, he was supposed to be kind of like a lanky sort of everyman, but this is the CW, so they have to CW him up. I understand.
Yeah, CW stable boy.
Later, Betty's talking with Archie at Pop's about her summer internship and a book release party for her favorite author, who tells her that one summer can change everything. Archie talks about his summer working with his dad and how he started writing song lyrics to help him get through. It's the first thing that he feels like is a breakthrough for him, and he can't wait to start doing what he wants with his life. Something that I can relate to just as a musician.
Music.
They're very supportive of each other. Archie is even saying Betty's the only person that he's told so far about this music thing. And here's the opening that Betty's been waiting for. She makes her move and she starts talking about their relationship and what might be next. But Archie has stopped paying attention because a new character has entered his life and the chocolate shop, Veronica Lodge. She starts up a conversation with Archie, who's very interested in flirting and having her sit down at their table, while Betty is a little bit more protective of Archie, something the other two don't really seem to even notice. Veronica recognizes Betty's name, though, as the person who's her peer mentor who's going to give her the tour tomorrow, but she has to run home and leave the conversation and says to be continue. And now Archie's attention goes back to Betty, and he's like, what were you saying? And she's like, oh, nothing. Oh.
Yeah. I don't know how to feel about Betty.
Really?
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think most people that I talked to when I ran the comic book store, most of the women loved Betty and didn't know how they felt about Veronica as far as
I
the
love
comic books
Veronica,
go.
and I don't know how I feel about Betty.
The next day, Archie's running late for school. Mr. Andrews wants Archie to come by work so that he can get him ready for office work on the next break instead of having to do the grunt work. But Archie declines, citing his need for more football practices. And that's the beginning of something that will come back around later in the episode.
A callback.
Next door, Mrs. Cooper is lecturing Betty on what she wants for further advancement in school and quickly finds a way to throw Jason Blossom under the bus for ruining Betty's sister, Polly, who had a thing with Jason. She gets upset at Betty for breaking her curfew by 7 minutes and tells her that all boys are like Jason Blossom, so Betty needs to be smart and focused and take her Adderall. they're doing a good job of making us dislike Betty's mom, I feel. From the during the Jughead interlude or opening thing.
Yeah.
She is even like mouthing underneath Jughead's narration, saying stuff like, I hope that Blossom Boy burns in hell, and all kinds of like really dark stuff where you're like, wow, okay.
Her mom is a major B. I don't know what her deal is.
Yeah, and they definitely like drive that point home here, and then there's one more scene later where they also kind of address that.
Like, she's so mean that I feel like she could secretly be the biological mother to Cheryl Blossom, because they're both nuts.
Later at school, Reggie and Moose are impressed with Archie's new physique, and they can't wait to see him on the football field. Reggie asks if Archie got any action from any cougars, which is a question that Archie dodged. So Reg tells Moose, he totally did it, bro. He totally did it. Which is another setup to stuff that will happen later.
Something that I hate.
Meanwhile, Betty is giving Veronica the tour of Riverdale High and giving her all kinds of fun facts, including that the school opened its doors in 1941, which is another reference that you probably don't get. No. But 1941 is when Archie and Betty and Veronica and all those characters started. That was the beginning of Archie Comics, was 1941.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, saying, oh, yeah, Riverdale High opened its doors in 1941. That's kind of a callback to their first appearance.
That's cool.
Veronica gets bored and asks about the nightlife and the social scene, to which Kevin comes zooming in from out of nowhere to inform her that there's one strip club called the Ho Zone, there's one gay bar called Innuendo, which he describes, I think, as being tragic or something like that. And then he talks about various tailgate parties, movie nights, and other stuff that happens around the town. And
Veronica's super excited about a gay guy.
She's like, oh, finally there's this liberal paradise in this middle of like simple small town, conservatism sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So she's like immediately like, oh my gosh, you're gonna be my new best friend. And to which Kevin says, hey, is it true what they say about your dad? And then that kind of ruins that.
Yeah.
Archie is listening to a closed rehearsal for Josie and the Pussycats. He was hoping to talk with Josie about the songs that he's been working on. But as soon as he starts, he's immediately interrupted by Josie, who rudely informs him that all about their cat ear headbands, their quote-unquote brand, and how great they are for creating a signature look and telling a story and winning last year's talent show. And they don't give a single care about him or his songs. Defeated, Archie sulks away and is spotted by Veronica, who starts gushing about him, asking, is he your boyfriend, to Betty and Kevin, who simultaneously say, no, we're just friends, and no, he's straight at the same time. And I laughed out loud when that scene happened. That was like
Kevin's
the first time.
so funny.
Yeah, just because that was such a funny line for Kevin. Which I think they do a pretty good job of making him likable.
Yeah.
Of all the characters, he's the one that I probably know the least about, just because he's the most recent addition to Archie Comics. I feel like he came out in 2010 or 2011. No pun intended. So Veronica's all excited, but Kevin says that even though Betty and Archie aren't officially together, they are, quote, in-game. So Veronica says, well, then you need to, ask him to the dance. And Kevin's like, yeah, if the dance isn't canceled. Which brings us to...
It's not canceled because Cheryl Blossom
to Cheryl, who's letting everyone know that her
crazy psychopath.
Her soulmate's death isn't going to cancel the dance. It will instead be done in his honor.
It'll be a celebration of his life.
Yeah.
Or his murder.
And there's some really serious, creepy vibes going on with that, which is something that was
she's way too happy for someone whose brother just died.
Especially in other scenes where they're referring to her, where she's real bubbly and is walking around putting her hand on people's shoulders
being
and giggling and talking, and you can just even though she's not talking, you can hear her condescendingly bubbly voice.
She acts like this is the greatest time of her whole entire life.
Yeah, she's gonna cash in on this tragedy to boost her even higher.
She creeps me out. The casting for her was good because I don't feel like that girl is likable even in the slightest.
But she is cute, which is something else that's
she's
important.
pretty,
as her
but
character.
she's really not likable.
Yeah. So while Cheryl is doing that whole thing, Archie starts doing these, making eyes at one of the like really young teachers that's there, who you end up finding out is Miss Grundy. And I was like, what? Because in the comic books, Miss Grundy is their homeschool or their homeroom teacher, and she's like super old and kind of crabby, and she only really seems to get along with like Jughead sometimes.
And this teacher.
But yeah, in this one, she's like super young, and Archie ends up having this flashback of passionate lovemaking in a car in the middle of the rain with her.
Because she picks him up, she sees him walking, and he's like all shirtless and sweaty.
No, he's not shirtless. He's just lifting up his shirt to show his abs. Right. Yeah, because there's sweat in his eye, and so he has to lift up from the bottom of his shirt so he can show her his abs.
And she's all like, "Hey,"
which I think is like Archie ab shot number 2.
Oh yeah,
like
there's
3 or
lots
4.
of ab shots.
Yeah. After the assembly, he goes running up to her and tries to talk to her. But good old Geraldine doesn't want anything to do with him, and she says that if he wants to talk about music, he can make an appointment, and then she like darts away from him. So you can already tell that that's going to be an ongoing plot.
A really annoying one. Yeah, that is honestly my least favorite part about the entire show so far.
I would agree. That's the part that I feel strays the farthest from Archie's character. Like him and a lot of the boys in the show, they have that sort of like awooga sort of like attitude, but they don't seem like they're the kind of person that would do that, if that makes sense. Well,
and you already know there's going to be the triangle between him and Betty and Veronica.
Exactly.
Why bring in the teacher? Like, that's just so unnecessary, and they could have come up with a better way for like his summer story and the ending to the episode without including the teacher.
I think all of her plot points were already done and already done better. As far as though, what was Archie doing over the summer? Well, Archie, number 1, he got fit by working for his dad in construction. Yeah. And number 2, he found out what he wants to do with his life because his passion is music.
He's banging his teacher. I would have found it much more interesting had she been an old crabby lady who ended up teaching him music.
Yeah.
But whatever.
But
I guess it's not the CW if you don't have, or that's my main. Not even the CW, because Pretty Little Liars isn't on the CW. It's ABC Family / Freeform, and there's a pretty disgusting student and teacher relationship there.
Yeah, so I feel like that's the one thing where they're like, well, we have to make it controversial.
We have to borrow this
we have to show these millennials that we're not just some 40s, 50s, 60s
I'm just waiting for her to get knocked up and thrown in jail like all the rest of these dumb teachers who sleep with 15-year-olds.
It's also the only storyline that I can't figure out what I want to happen in the future. Like all the other storylines,
I just want it to go away. It makes me feel so uncomfortable and not in like an entertaining, fun way.
All the other ones, I can think of several different ways that the storyline could branch out and how it could intersect with other storylines to be really interesting. But that one, it's like, gosh, I just don't want anything else to happen at all.
It's just so icky. I mean, it's one thing for your twin brother-sister relationship to be incestuous.
Yeah.
But then, like, you don't need that and this.
Yeah, and that was just implied, too. So, I mean, I don't know.
What was implied?
The whole, like, weird incestuous relationship
I just assume. Part. I mean, Game of Thrones has kind of ruined me, and anytime there's brother-sister twins, I'm like, well, they're sleeping together. I don't care. That's always going to be my guess.
Yeah, so getting away from that storyline, Hermione Lodge, who is Veronica's mom, is meeting with Mr. Andrews, who is Archie's dad, to ask if she can get a job working on the company books. She mentions that their kids are going to the same school, and even how she used to date him back in the day, but that she left him because she, quote, chose the rich kid, according to Mr. Andrews.
So their parents are going to hook up.
Maybe. We find out that the Andrews are separated, but they're civil with one another. He wants to help out Hermione because they're old friends, but her husband is right now in trouble for a bunch of white-collar crimes, so he can't really have her touching his company's books.
Right.
And that's another thing that, again, a little bit later in the episode, you kind of get the feeling that her and her husband's storyline will potentially have a big impact in later episodes.
Yeah. If you hear any weird sounds, our cat is currently in the room we're recording in.
Yeah, she's like eating food.
Eating and drinking and climbing on me and knocking her head into the mic. She's not polite.
So at lunch, Archie is showing Betty and Kevin one of his songs. Then Veronica shows up, and all three of them are gushing over how good Archie's music is. Veronica seems to flirt with Archie some more, and Archie has to leave for football. Kevin tells Veronica that Betty still hasn't asked Archie to the dance, but before the conversation can continue, the trio gets interrupted by Meghan's favorite character, Cheryl Blossom, who has Betty move over and make some room so she can sit down at their table. She asks if they were talking about how hot Archie is, so Betty looks to Veronica and shakes her head a whole bunch, no, don't let her talk about that. So Veronica comes up with an excuse saying extracurriculars. I need to figure out extracurriculars to do. So Cheryl tells her that she should join the cheerleading squad because she's the head cheerleader. So she says that she'll try out, and so will Betty, who Cheryl is obviously less enthusiastic about. She leaves, and she says, follow me on Twitter, at Cheryl Bombshell, who I looked up, at Cheryl Bombshell. It's an official Twitter for her. It's real. You can go follow it, yep. So Betty tells Veronica that she really does want to be a cheerleader, but last year Cheryl said that she was too fat. Veronica says that she's a total smoke show now, so she's going to help her get in fighting shape and show her all her moves. Which already you're seeing, again, how the Betty and Veronica friendship is building up, which is something that I feel is really, really important in the show.
That's my favorite part of the show so far.
Yeah, because it would be really easy for them to do a lot of these, because it's going to be a love triangle thing, and that's obvious.
Right.
It would be really easy for them to come off seeming like enemies. But in the comic book, there's a whole line of books that's Betty and Veronica where they're together and they're friends.
Right.
So you're going to have it make sense where Betty and Veronica can be together and be friends, but then when Archie comes around, then that's when they're kind of pitted against one another.
Sorry for my yawning.
No, it's cool. We're recording this really late, and I'm
so
getting
tired.
I'm getting over a really bad cold, so I keep having to cough and take hits from my inhaler. So
yeah,
it's an interesting night.
We've been up since 5. Yeah. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Was it something about Cheryl?
No, I think it was about Betty and Veronica, but I don't really remember.
All right. Well, we'll be talking a lot more about Betty and Veronica as it goes on, so it'll probably come back to you. We cut to Archie, who's showing Miss Grundy his music. Miss Grundy is super standoffish about everything, and it's revealed that they were making out at Sweetwater River on the same day at the same time as the accident with Jason happened. And Archie says he has to tell someone, but Grundy says that they can't explain why they were there together, and because of that, they can't tell anyone about them hearing a gunshot.
For a teacher, she's really stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you can't say anything because then they'll know I was there. No, you can say that one of you was there and not the other.
Or you guys could both be there separately.
Yeah.
You could just say, hey, I saw this and I happened to see her there too.
Archie's getting in shape. Maybe he was going for an early morning run.
Yeah.
Heard a gunshot. Ooh, big deal. She's like, oh no, everyone will find out that I'm a disgusting pedophile.
Yeah. If we tell them that we heard gunshots, then we'll also have to tell them that we were making out on a blanket, having a picnic.
'Cause that's just how it works.
Later, we go to see the cheerleading auditions. Cheryl is not impressed by our dynamic duo. So as a last-ditch effort, Veronica grabs Betty and he kisses her. She kisses her. Which, I mean, that was cool. I didn't see that coming, and it doesn't really make sense. But I was like, all right, they did that.
I mean, like, I guess if the song they were doing their cheer to was like "I Kissed a Girl" or something, I would be like, okay,
contextual sense.
But instead,
like
she's just
said,
like, "Hey, watch this."
Yeah, like I feel like she did that. Like she was expecting all of the Archie fanboys to be like, "Oh man, this is the greatest moment of my life."
Yeah.
But I was just like, "All right, that was cool. On with the next thing." And then Cheryl even like calls it out and is like, yeah, fake lesbian kisses haven't been relevant or interesting since the 90s. So, yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing was kind of
But I
weird.
feel like it's going to end up a talking point on a lot of blogs and podcasts and stuff like that.
Probably. I don't really care about it one way or the other.
And Cheryl didn't care about it one way or the other either. So you're very similar to Cheryl, I guess.
Oh, no.
So.
I mean, Cheryl let Betty join the squad.
Spoilers.
Oh. I mean, like, it's not very long after that Betty's in a cheerleading uniform.
Yeah, but there's a really cool scene that happens first. So, first they have to go to the interview portion where Cheryl just keeps making a big deal about Jason and Polly. Polly, again, being Betty's sister. And she keeps just egging Betty on to see if she'll blow up and finally, quote, show her some fire. But Betty is just like biting her tongue and digging her nails into her hands so much that she like scrapes the skin off and is bleeding in her hand. And she just says, "I'm sorry for your loss."
I just really,
Betty being Betty.
I know. I can't wait until one of these days Betty's just going to be like, "Listen here, you stupid."
You know what?
Yeah.
Which she kind of does to her mom later on, spoilers.
But it was nice to see Veronica be like, "You know what? Shut up."
Yeah, she has a really, really cool scene where Cheryl basically says, Veronica, you're in Betty, don't let the door hit you, basically.
Yeah.
And so Veronica just verbally destroys Cheryl and tells her that her eventual reckoning might just happen now, and that eventual reckoning might just be Veronica. And if Cheryl wants to deal in fire, then Veronica is going to have to apologize because her specialty is ice. And Betty and Veronica are a matching set, and they're sold as a pair, so you can take them both or leave them both. And I was like, oh, dang. Then outside, Archie is getting offered a bigger commitment by joining varsity football, but Archie denies it, citing that he has to work for his father's company, which is part 2 to something that's going to come back around later. And then, boom, we jump right back to Betty and Veronica, and they're in new cheerleading suits. So that verbal assault on Cheryl worked. Together, Betty and Veronica start talking about Veronica's past, where she says that she used to be a major ice queen, and she was even worse than Cheryl. She told herself that she would have to become a better version of herself, and that's part of the reason why she really wants to help Betty. So Betty then opens up to her about her sister Polly being in love with Jason, and Jason being with her but not really caring at all about her, and then how verbally abusive Mrs. Cooper was with Polly, and how Jason hurt her, but it was Mrs. Cooper that broke her and sent her into a mental home. That's when Archie shows up, and Veronica takes this time to tell Archie that Betty has something to say. So Betty kind of stumbles and then says that Archie should go to the dance with her and Veronica. And Archie's like, no, I can't do that. Sorry, my head's not in the game or whatever. And then Betty, of course, is like, oh, that's okay. And then Veronica's like no. No, we're not taking no for an answer, Archiekins. And when she said Archiekins, I was like, oh, yay. Because that's what
you had your fangirl moment.
That's what Veronica always calls Archie in the comics. So when she did that, I was like, yay, I'm back in. So later, Betty's dancing around in her cheerleading outfit, and Mrs. Cooper comes in and tells her that she can't be on the cheerleading squad after what the Blossoms did to Polly. And all of this talk about Polly and the Blossoms makes Betty finally break, and she talks about how she always puts everyone else before her, and she just can't take it anymore. She has to do something for herself, so this is the one thing that she's going to do. And while she's at it, she's going to have to leave to go get a dress because she's going to the dance with Archie and Veronica, and her mom doesn't like that either because she says that it's girls like Veronica that are like so mean to girls like Betty and her, and Betty's like, yeah, you don't know what's going on, just shut up and leave me alone. She's nice, and she's basically my best friend.
Yeah.
So that was actually pretty cool to see after having the whole episode kind of build up to this point where you see that Betty's kind of getting walked on in this whole
But she
episode.
finally stands up to her mom, who really deserves to be ripped a new one.
Yeah, especially after you hear about how basically the things that she's doing to Betty, like, destroyed her sister.
Mm-hmm.
So we cut to Hermione Lodge, who got a bag from Smithers, and she's like, yeah, I don't have a missing bag. This is weird. And she opens it up, and she finds a load of money from her husband, Hiram. And I'm like, uh-oh. This is the beginning of some sort of season-long story arc. A season-long story arc.
All I know is that if you ever go to jail or die, you better leave me a big duffel bag full of cash.
Yeah, that I probably stole through white-collar crimes or something. At home, Archie's playing guitar. His dad says that he got a call from the coach, and this is the payoff for all these things that have been being set up. He says that the coach says he can't play football because he has to work for his dad, but he told his dad that he couldn't work because he had football.
Yeah.
And that's when Archie finally tells Mr. Andrews that he has a dream to make music, and his dad at first is like kind of hesitant because he's like, you can get a future out of football and you can get a future working with me, and that's how you are guaranteed success, basically. But finally, teary-eyed, he tells him that he doesn't have to play football and he doesn't have to work, but man to man, he should know that his decisions reflect who he is as a person, and what he wants to do with his life will always be supported by Mr. Andrews, but that Archie needs to be confident enough to not lie to him.
Yeah. I really like Archie's dad a lot.
Yeah, that scene was one of the major scenes for me.
I don't in general. I'm not a huge Luke Perry fan, but I think he's good in this kind of a role.
Yeah, and I don't even really know who Luke Perry is. Like, he's one of those guys that, yeah, I've seen his face before and I've heard his name,
Buffy,
but I haven't seen either of those shows, so I don't really know.
Not the show, the movie.
I haven't seen the movie in like 15 years or something like that.
It was my favorite movie as a kid.
Yeah, so like that part wasn't as important as just the actual scene that he was portraying, which he's a pretty good actor, I think, or at least in that scene. That was one of the major scenes, like I said, where I feel like I want to see more of the father-son relationship between those two later on, just because of how well they set that up.
Yeah, I want to see more of that too.
We cut to the prom. Archie comes in with Betty on one arm, Veronica on the other, and he's got like this checkered bow tie. And like that was like the iconic scene. I was like, yes, that's like the most Archie that Archie could ever be. That's like a comic cover right there.
Yeah.
And with one girl on each arm with the bow tie and everything.
Yeah.
So it was another one of those, oh, I'm back, I'm all in sort of moments. Veronica says she has to leave to go get Punch. But first she has to tell Archie that he doesn't have to choose to be an artist or a jock. In this age, you can be both or you can be anything. He says, I'm working on it, and I think he says Ronnie there, which, if he did, that's awesome, because that's what he calls Veronica in the comic books. That's like his Archiekins sort of thing. Yeah. And she says, okay, well, if you're working on it, work faster. And then she whispers to Betty, you got this. So because of that, Betty starts to talk to Archie. But right when she starts to talk to him, he interrupts her and says, hey, I got to do something real quick. If I do this, it'll make the rest of our date better. And he cuts out to go talk to Grundy again. Yeah. But Archie gets replaced dancing with Betty by Kevin. And he's freaking out because he just got propositioned in the bathroom by Moose, of all characters. Which is, I would be cool with Moose being gay and doing stuff with Kevin and all that. It wasn't for the fact that Moose has a girlfriend in the comic books, so I don't know what they're going to do with her.
Maybe he doesn't have a girlfriend in the show.
But then that would be kind of a bummer to just take that character all the way out, because she's kind of a cool character. She's one of those, like, hard-headed girls that's, like, one of the, like, the only people that's more powerful than Moose, pretty much.
Well, maybe they'll bring her in, but it'll be one of those, like, oh, I'm sorry, you can be my best friend still, but I'm actually gay sort of things.
Maybe. I kind of just hope that he's, like, bi or something. Over on the other side of the dance, Archie is sitting down with Miss Grundy, and he tells her that the only thing that's been keeping him sane and not lose his mind over all the secrets that they have together is his music. So they need to do an independent music study together in the mornings as often as she can spare, so that he won't have to tell anybody about the problems that he's having. And he promises that it will be strictly professional, and Miss Grundy agrees, and then tells him a couple days a week that he can, like,
and then
meet up with her.
And then she storms off.
Yeah, and then she storms out.
I mean, it's going to be strictly professional because Archie's like, man, now I have 2 other girls interested in me.
That are my age.
And
way more attractive.
Way more.
So after that, Josie and the Pussycats come on stage, and they start to play a cover of All Through the Night by Cyndi Lauper. Betty dances with Archie and asks if they can be a power couple together now that she's a cheerleader and he's a football player. Archie decides to not answer at all, not say anything, and it just gets really awkward.
Yeah.
Then Cheryl strong-arms everyone into going to her after party, where she nominates Archie to start off playing 7 Minutes in Heaven. She spins a bottle for him, and it falls right in the middle between Betty and Veronica.
And she says it's obviously Veronica.
Obviously it's Veronica, so they need to go into the closet. And Veronica's like, no, I don't want to do that. And she's like, if you don't, the house rule says that the host gets to do that, so I would go in the closet with him. And she looks at Betty, and she's like, well, that would probably be worse. So she's like, okay, fine, let's go.
Yeah, Archie would probably end up in the bottom of a friggin' river.
So she goes in, and they basically just start asking questions. Like, Veronica's asking a lot of questions about Betty. Archie's asking questions about, like, does she have boyfriends back home, stuff like that. And finally it comes down to her saying, do you love Betty, like, as a girlfriend? And he doesn't say anything. And then they end up kissing.
Yeah.
And when they leave the closet, they find out that Betty got really sad and left, and they both realize that they screwed up. So Veronica goes home to her mom and has like a little quick moment with her mom. And Archie goes to Pop's because it's the only place that's open that late. And Betty's not there, but his friend Jughead is there. And this is like the first time that we actually get to see Jughead talk.
Without just him being the
other
narrator,
than him narrating,
and then
yeah.
little flashes of him on the camera.
Which, that's probably after the like mistake part with the whole, I think Archie shouldn't be doing stuff with his teacher, and I do think that Archie should be way more clumsy.
Yeah.
Other than the Archie mess up things, I think this is the second biggest mess up, is just like Jughead is my favorite character from that universe, so I really wanted there to be a lot of Jughead.
And there was almost none.
Yeah, and there was almost no Jughead. So in the teaser stuff that I see for episode 2, everything I see is the 4 of them at Pop's Chocolate Shop, which makes me really excited because I hope that means that now that they've introduced the triangle, now they can start. Yeah, it's like they used
him to introduce everything.
Yeah, so he might end up being a big focal point for the show as a whole.
He's one of the only
like established people.
Yeah, like if you look everyone up, the guy who plays Archie is like just some nobody from New Zealand basically, and then Betty and Veronica, neither one of them even have Wikipedia links that like go and give you a good breakdown of who they are. So it's like they're all pretty much really new to everything. But then Cole Sprouse, I mean, God, he's been acting since he was a friggin' baby.
Yeah, he's basically been consistently employed by Disney most of his life.
Yeah.
So.
And when it wasn't Disney, he was on Friends. He was in, was he the kid in Big Daddy or whatever that Adam Sandler?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because that was around the same time he was Ben on Friends.
I feel like that was like shortly after or somewhere around that time period, yeah. He was also in like a movie with Marilyn Manson when he was like, I feel like that would have been sometime around the Sweet Life Disney stuff. But yeah, so I feel like all that kind of stuff is kind of leading towards him being a bigger deal. And I hope that the whole him constantly typing on his laptop and him like paying attention to stuff, maybe him and Dilton can be the two that kind of unravel the mystery together. That would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So when he's talking to Jughead, basically all that they do is summarize all the events that have happened in the episode super quickly. It's like a super short scene. And it ends with Jug basically just being like, you should talk to Betty because talking is what fixes everything. Talking is what makes you feel better. Like, just look at what happened by you talking to me, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So he listens to his advice and he goes and he finds Betty, and Betty comes straight out of her house and says that she doesn't want to talk about what just happened tonight. All she wants to know is if Archie loves her. And he says, of course I love you, but I can't give you the answer that you want. And she says, why? And he says, it's because you're so perfect, and no matter what he does, he can never be good enough to deserve her. And that answer is not good enough for her, and she walks back inside.
Because she's like his best friend.
Yeah. So finally, at the very end scene, I thought that was the end. I was like, oh, that's a really good way to end it. Like, that's a good cliffhanger. But then, it's not over. We cut to Kevin and Moose, who are flirting and getting ready to skinny dip, but they don't even get their shirts off before Kevin trips over Jason's dead body. And it's washed up onto shore, and there's a bullet hole in his head.
Yep.
So he didn't drown. And then that's when Jughead's narration comes back in, and he says, Monday, an autopsy takes place. Tuesday, halfway through 5th period, the first arrest was made. And that's the end of the first episode. And when they
say halfway through 5th period, I'm thinking, like, if he's associating it with, like, a period in school, I'm hoping that it means they went and arrested his sister.
Yeah, someone that's in
at
school
got arrested.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that the second episode is going to start at school, and someone's going to be, like, coming in and saying, so-and-so, please come to the principal's office, or something like that.
And clearly it has to be Cheryl.
Yeah, I feel like it would have to be Cheryl.
Who else could they blame that on? She's the one who's like, oh yeah, my glove fell off, and he bent down in the water to get it, and the boat flipped over, and he drowned. Yeah, okay.
So what are you looking forward to in the next episode, and what are you looking forward to from the season as a whole? Have you thought very much about that? I
haven't, as far as the season as a whole goes, but for the next episode, I definitely want to see more Jughead, and I want to see less Archie teacher drama. I mean, I'm fine, obviously, if she's going to be working on his music with him, but I don't want there to be any more of that stupid tension that's not there because they have, like, no chemistry. And it's just so awkward and creepy to me.
Yeah, and that's the main thing, is every scene with them is awkward tension. It's not enjoyable at all. It's like even they don't look comfortable.
In the car, like the back seat of the car is all steamy and they're making out. I'm just like, I don't really like feel anything with that.
Yeah.
I would be like, I liked his kiss with Veronica more. I would be even more interested in seeing him kiss Betty than I would be to see him make out with his teacher again.
Yeah. So, I don't know about necessarily the very next episode beyond the obvious.
Oh, and I also want more of his dad.
Yeah, definitely.
His dad, Jughead, and then less teacher, more Betty, Veronica, Archie, Jughead.
Yeah,
together.
I agree. Like I said, in the next episode, I know it's going to deal a lot with the fallout of them finding Jason's body. From the show as a whole, I hope that they make Josie a lot more likable, because she came off as a real jerk really cold, in this episode. Yeah. She was very much like, get out of my face, I don't care. It would be cool
to see a friendship between Archie and Josie. Another thing that, I know you said that in the books, Jughead is more like asexual, but it wouldn't bother me if they eventually, I guess if I'm thinking more long term, because I really like Archie and Veronica together, so if Jughead and Betty kind of had a thing,
no, I don't like that at all. I would be cool with that. See, and that's what's interesting about this, because as a comic book point of view, I'm like, I don't want that at all.
Yeah, but I'm more of like a shipper.
Yeah, that's a what if that I would not enjoy.
I love putting characters together.
Yeah, to me, I don't like it at all. Like, Yeah, I don't want Jughead to be with anybody. Like,
ooh, or Jughead and Veronica. That would be kind of interesting.
Jughead's only relationship should be with burgers at Pops. That's the only relationship
My only relationship, no offense, should be with burgers. I'm really hungry.
Well, and speaking of more stuff with Jughead, I'd like Jughead to have a bigger relationship with food. He was at the chocolate shop every time we see him almost, and he was never eating. He wasn't even like snacking on fries while he was like typing away at his laptop.
Hopefully they'll incorporate that more. I want to see him like accidentally drop ketchup and stuff.
Yeah, like he should be like reaching in his pocket to like to pay for something and just be like, oh, I don't have any cash, and in his hand it's just like a ketchup packet or something.
Right.
Like there needs to be more food jokes with him, even if it's just like throwaway little jokes. Like a lot of the jokes in this show were, as far as like they're basically just Easter eggs for comic book readers.
Right.
But I'd like there to be something more like that. And going back to Josie and the Pussycats, when I was talking to you, I was talking to you about how their music does play a pretty big role in several different story arcs in the Archie comic books, including there being Battle of the Bands stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it would be really cool if, like, on a whim, he's just like, we gotta make a band, and it's gonna be me, and it's gonna be Betty and Veronica, and it's going to be Reggie and Jughead, and it's just whoever is standing there when it happens, and that he just is like, this is my band, we have to hurry up and sign up for the competition or whatever. And when they ask, okay, well, what is your band name going to be called? That's when Veronica or somebody's like, we're the Archies.
Yeah.
So, and then Josie and the Pussycats can win the competition, but because the Archies came in second and were really strong, then afterwards Josie can kind of come up holding the trophy and be like, you know what, Archie, or what did she call him? Justin Ginger Lake or whatever.
Oh yeah, Justin Ginger Lake.
She can be like, you're good after all. You're good. You should come by sometime and we can play together or something like that. Just so that you can see, okay, she's not a cold-hearted jerk. She can be a friend and a part of the crew.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But yeah, that's just about it. I wouldn't mind there being more side characters showing up, just other random people that I can go, oh, I like them, that's cool, can't believe that they're in the episode, sort of thing. But yeah, more Jughead, more Dilton, more inside jokes with comic book fans. But so as a whole, do you like it?
Yeah, I really like it.
You're gonna watch more episodes with me?
Yep.
All right, cool.
I need a show to replace the two that are leaving me this season.
What two are leaving you this season?
Vampire Diaries and Pretty Little Liars.
Forever?
Yeah, their series finale.
Oh man,
both this year.
Well, hopefully this one gets picked up for a second season.
I know. I hope they pull a This Is Us and renew it for a couple more seasons.
Yeah, I don't know. I've only seen a couple reviews so far. It hasn't been out for very long.
Were they good?
One of them was mixed but mostly positive. The other one was talking about how the show ruins literally everything that's enjoyable from the comic books. And
Ouch.
But the funny part was they didn't seem to know as much about the comic books as you would think. They seemed to be the kind of person that was experiencing the comic book from the window of a train, as Jughead would say in the beginning. So I'm hoping. So
they're just like, oh, well, this doesn't look all
this
right.
Isn't,
like
yeah, this isn't the caricature
whatever.
of that comic book I never read, so it's bad. And so I hope that more Archie fans like me aren't going to be too turned off by it. Obviously, like I said, there are things I don't like that I hope that they change. But I'm also realistic. I understand that it's going to be more broad.
Well, and as far as pilots go, I feel like it was a pretty strong pilot. Even though there were things that I didn't like, it's not like I watch one episode and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to keep watching this. It's like, no, I want to keep watching this and see where it goes. And I think what helped that was the ending. It wasn't just like, oh, Betty crying and Archie being like, oh, but you're my best friend. It like ended on a weird, creepy note where I'm like, okay, I have to see who gets arrested. And I have to see where that goes because I feel like Cheryl is just going to be like, what? Of course I didn't do that.
But what's interesting is I care way more about the interpersonal relationships than I do about the creepy gunshot thing, which is the exact opposite of how I would be in a normal show. Like, if you were just having me watch Pretty Little Liars, I'd be like, all these characters are stupid. I don't like any of them. Just get back to the talk about killers. And in this, I'm like,
wrong.
In this, I would be like, I don't care. Like, let's not even worry about Jason's dead body. Let's instead, like, is Archie gonna date Veronica for a while because Betty, like, they're not gonna be an option, and then at some point maybe Betty and Archie get stuck together, and then they end up kissing, and then it's like, oh no, you're with Veronica and you just kissed Betty. Like, that's the stuff I care about.
I mean, the thing that bums me out, since I'm stuck on the whole mystery of it, it's not a mystery. Like, we know what happened.
Kind of.
I mean, I just can't imagine that it happened any other way.
Yeah, but if Cheryl lied about that, what else was Cheryl lying about? She could have not even been there.
But they showed us that thing. Was
they
that
show
supposed
us
to be
flash
from her memory?
Yeah. They show us, because he says supposedly from her, and then it shows her dropping the glove and him reaching for it and all that.
Someone found her sitting on the rock.
Yeah, Dilton and all of them.
So she was out there.
I guess we'll figure it out.
But I mean, now that you say that, maybe he wasn't there at the time and he was already out there and had already been shot.
Yeah, maybe it was one of her friends or something, or her mom, or someone else's mom that was like, oh my gosh, something bad happened and he got shot.
Betty's
it was an accident.
Betty's mom.
Well, see, and that's the thing.
Was like,
Betty's
you're sick. You're sleeping with both of your sisters, your twin sister and this sister that you didn't know about, because I'm your real mother.
It could easily involve Betty's mom. Like, everything's off the table with this being
it
a
really
reboot.
could. I think
and she
it's
obviously hates her.
It's Betty's mom. Betty's mom is evil.
20 seconds ago, you were saying it was obviously 100% Cheryl. Now it's 100% Betty's mom. What other characters don't you like?
It's both of them.
It was Grundy.
Who's Grundy?
The teacher that you don't like.
Oh, yeah.
I was just saying.
It was Grundy, and it was Betty's mom, and it was Cheryl. They all were, like, teaming up because Jason must have been really horrible.
And if there's a character in episode 2 you don't like, she or he did it too.
Yeah, they all did it. They were all, like, had their hands interlaced over the gun, and they were all pulling the trigger at the same time.
Yeah, and they, like, looked at each other and nodded and smiled and were like, it's for the good of the future of Riverdale.
We can't let this ginger survive.
Next, it's Cheryl.
Because there are too many gingers in this damn show.
There are a lot of gingers in this show.
Like, Archie's a ginger. Like, they're all somehow related. Like, there are too many redheads. I don't understand.
All right, guys. So that'll probably do it for this episode. Do you have anything else that you want to say to close it?
No, I'm tired.
All right. We will see you in less than a week because episode 2 of Riverdale comes out on Thursday?
Thursday night, yeah. So we'll probably
have another episode out on Friday. All right. Much love. Be safe.
Bye.
And I was like, oh, dang.